The state television company Western Armenia represents the most important news for today. Good day. Intellectual property, genetic resources and Western Armenia. The 14th Council of Ministers of the Government of the Republic of Western Armenia. The Armenian woman, victim and hero of the genocide and society. The Yerevan government has been doing the same thing for 200 years. Suren Petrosyan and Bagrat Srbazan visited the Union of Journalists. 2025, the Aurora Prize nominations are now open. With the silent consent of the civilized world, the Armenian cultural trace is being destroyed in Artsakh. Intellectual property, genetic resources in Western Armenia. On May 14, the diplomatic conference of the Intergovernmental Committee on Intellectual Property and Genetic Resources, Traditional Knowledge and Folklore was held in Geneva, organized by the United Nations World Intellectual Property Organization. The delegation of Western Armenia also participated in the conference. The president of the National Council of Western Armenia, Mr. Armine Abrahamian, thanked the Assembly of Armenians of Western Armenia for accrediting the historic diplomatic conference. Mr. Armine Abrahamian stated in his speech that this legal instrument is vital for the future for indigenous peoples. He stated, "Today, without any obligation, I am going to reveal something for Western Armenia, the genetic resources, that is nature, which has a name, and that is called Anahit." Mr. Armine Abrahamian highlighted several important points too in his speech. First, I want to raise the issue of indigenous people who were subjected to genocide in the year of 1894-1923. The Armenians of Western Armenia were deprived of their lands, and then in 1920 they were deprived of their statehood by Turkey. The same thing happened again in September with regard to Armenians of Artsakh. In 2023, ethnic cleansing took place in Artsakh. The people of Artsakh lost their lands, as a result of which Azerbaijan illegally appropriated and exploited the genetic resources of the people of Artsakh and completely destroyed their spiritual and sacred heritage. The second, in addition, with regard to the disclosure requirement, Article 3, we propose that state parties not only recognize the existence of indigenous people in their native territories, even if these people have been subjected to genocide, ethnic cleansing, or forced assimilation, but also states to support indigenous peoples in their reconstruction. The implementation of the principle of reconciliation are proposed and applied by many states, and the development of databases that allow the discovery of traditional knowledge related to genetic resources based on mutual trust. The third, this document does not apply to indigenous people accredited and present as contracting parties or other participants in this document who have participated as observers in the preparation of this treaty for more than 25 years, even when this document deals with issues directly related to them. We would like to remind you that there are many articles in the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and Nagoya Protocol that refer to lands and resources that indigenous people have been the primary owners for their lands for thousands of years. The 14th Council of Ministers of the Government of the Republic of Western Armenia was held. The session was chaired by the President of the Republic of Western Armenia, Ms. Lidia Margosyan. During the session, the first President of the Western Armenia, Armine Abrahamian, informed that the UN World Intellectual Property Organization organized a diplomatic conference of the Intergovernmental Committee on Intellectual Property and Genetic Resources, Traditional Knowledge and Folklore in Geneva. And this year, the delegation of Western Armenia also participated in the conference. Mr. Armine Abrahamian presented to the members of the government the details of his speech on May 14, where he noted that it has been more than a century since Western Armenia and its native Armenian population, after being recognized as a sovereign and independent state in 1920, without observing the norms of international law, they are subjected not only to genocide but also to forced displacement and territorial annexation and seizure of their genetic resources, the systematic destruction of its heritage and spiritual and material culture and property, the forced religious conversion of the population, which leads to the denial of the existence of indigenous people who are victims of the genocide and has disastrous consequences for the transmission of traditional knowledge and their cultural self-expression. Mr. Armine Abrahamian said that the members of the delegation of Baku, Turkey and Eastern Armenia responded to his speech. You can watch the reaction of the states on the YouTube page of Western Armenia TV. The opening of the temporary exhibition entitled An Armenian Woman, a Victim and a Hero of Genocide took place in the temporary exhibition hall of the Museum Institute of the Genocide Against the Armenians. The director, Edita Gazoyan, noted that through this exhibition the attendees will see the face of the terrible crime against humanity, the inhumanity of the trials of Armenian women during the genocide against the Armenians. Then added, during the years of the genocide against the Armenians, the caravans of displaced people consisting mainly of women and children were deliberately attacked by robbers, as a result of which the local Turkish, Kurdish and Arab population forcibly took possession of Armenian women and kidnapped them and children. The abductees were stole, taken to Muslim homes, often to those who had killed their family members, forced to convert, forced into slave labor. The term orphan applied to Armenian women, orphan and widow, that is, deprived of parents and husband, perhaps best describe their fate. The exhibition includes many personal items related to the life and lifestyles of an Armenian woman, originally exclusive photos, documents, memoirs, documentary films, etc. The exhibition will run until 2025 April. Artur Osipyan from Artsakh protects the Lemkin Institute's criticism of the Eastern Armenian authorities regarding the 1915 genocide. He also points out that the mistakes of Eastern Armenian authorities in politics. Artur Osipyan reminded that Raphael Lemkin is a Polish lawyer who is the author of the term genocide and the draft of the UN Convention on Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Osipyan reminded as well that in 1944, when Lemkin created the concept of genocide, he mentioned that the extermination of Armenians in 1915 as a fundamental example of genocide. In other words, if the leadership of Yerevan bows down to Erdogan and renounce the genocide, it would not only be a humiliation of its own people, but also a violation of the international law that condemns the genocide. The chairperson of the Union of Journalists, Sahakyan, received Bagrat, Srbazan and Suren Petrosyan. Sahakyan thanked journalists and cameramen for their work. Journalists have power and are the bearers of the truth, said the bishop, thanking the journalistic community, although sometimes they annoy me a lot, in the sense that they are very curious, but they have the self-expression to work with their hearts, noted Bagrat, Srbazan. During the meeting, the reporter of Western Armenia TV said that during the dispersal of the protest taking place in Yerevan on May 14, the officer of the Special Forces Battalion of the police obstructed Mayor Davtyan, the operator of the ABC Media AM news site, and the reporter of 24 News AM, who were covering those events. The work of Mari Manukyan, in particular, as a result of being pushed and thrown to the ground, Mari Manukyan was injured and lost consciousness. Although the police provided first aid, it was necessary to hospitalized the journalist. In a response, Suren Petrosyan said, considering that the mass actions taking place in the country have a tendency to continue, and unfortunately they are often accompanied by obstacles to the activities of the mass media. We will carefully follow the events, we will record all the facts, and we will regularly present them to the public along with our assessments. At the end, Bagrat Archbishop Galasyan thanked the journalists for their impartial coverage and called the movement struggle for truth. Nominations for Aurora of 2024 award has already started. This global award from the Aurora humanitarian initiative identifies and supports today's heroes who are making tangible positive changes in communities where it is needed most. Anyone can nominate modern day heroes, after which their compliance with the nomination criteria is checked. After the initial evaluation, the board of experts of the Aurora Prize draws up a short list of candidates. Later, the Aurora Award Selection Committee selects the Aurora heroes and then the award winner, whose name is announced at the Aurora Award ceremony. In 2024, at the Aurora Award ceremony held on May 9 in Los Angeles, Dennis McWaich was recognized as the winner of the Aurora Award for his courageous efforts to protect women and bring perpetrators from the violence to justice. Thus, he received a unique opportunity to continue the donation chain by directing the 1 million prize to support community activists who help people in need, created on behalf of the survivors of the genocide against Armenians. In gratitude to their records, the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative seeks to solve humanitarian problems in different corners of the world. It has already reached out to more than 3 and up to million people in dire need. The destruction of the foundation of the Holy Hambartsum Church in Berdzor is another manifestation of Azerbaijan vandalism. This is stated in an article spread by the Geghard Scientific Analytical Foundation. In 2024, on May, a satellite photo was shared on the internet where it is clearly seen that Baku completely destroyed Berdzor St. Hambartsum Church. This regular manifestation of vandalism is a common phenomenon for that state, one of the main problems of which is to destroy the Armenian traces in the occupied territory. This is cultural genocide, which is defined as follows: deliberate neglect or destruction of the cultural values of an ethno-religious or religious group, which is one of the actions associated with genocide. The goal is to prove that the group never lived in the given area and had no cultural presence, stated the foundation, recalling that back in 2022, the Public Organization for the Protection of Monuments of Baku issued a statement that they were initiating the restoration of Berdzor St. Hambartsum Church in order to make it into a mosque. It is important to state that the state policy of Baku, represented by Aliyev and the dictatorial regime he created, has made an open statement that it will continue to destroy the heritage created by Armenians in the last 40 years. The most vivid example of this was the photo shared by the BBC on March 25, 2021, where it can be seen that Yerevan St. Astvatazin Church, built in 2014, was completely destroyed. Thus, with the silent consent of the civilized world, step by step, the Armenian cultural trace is being destroyed in the territory of Artsakh. There is no doubt that Azerbaijan will complete its planned cultural genocide. We are witnessing what's happening in Nakhichevan and near under the control of Baku. The statement concludes it. Geghard Scientific and Analytical Foundation strongly condemns another act of vandalism by Baku. This was all for today. Goodbye.
Երբ դառնամ ես օղտով գերկում հանգչեմ քեզ կիսելու բաժանել են նվիրելու ուրացել են իմ սրտի ամեն մի զարկը թող արձագանքի Արցախ ես ամեն ինչը զուր չէ սա մեր նոր վերածնունդն է չի կիսում ոչ ոք քո ցավը Դիմանում ես լուր Արցախ Մի ծաղկով եկած գարուն